Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Lobbying 101. We're going to get started. Tonight's presentation is going to be all about lobbying elected government officials as a private citizen. This webinar is meant to be informative and educational. We hope it clears the air on what lobbying is and what lobbying looks like, and bestows a confidence and excitement in you to go forth and advocate for the issues where you want to see improvements or reform. My name is Isabella, and I'm your policy coordinator here at the American Humanist Association. Online with us, we have Lily Balorian, who's legal and policy director at the AHA. And we'll also hear from Scott McConomy with the Secular Coalition for America, who's also one of the most knowledgeable and kindest people in the game. Thanks, Scott, for being with us today. Scott will specifically be talking about a really cool and easy opportunity to actually lobby in Congress, so you'll definitely want to stick around for that. In the next hour, we're going to cover why lobbying is important, what lobbying looks like at different levels of government, lobbying that requires no spoken words or human interaction, and upcoming opportunities to put what you learned today to the test. So just so we can get through all the content in a timely manner, we'll be holding questions until the end. But during the presentation, feel free to drop your questions in the questions tab chat, the Q&A. And then finally, before we get started, let's just briefly take a moment to recognize and thank you for being here at 7 p.m. on a Monday night. The issues you care about and the people they affect, thank you for taking time to educate yourself about an important advocacy skill. So we're grateful to have you. Let's go to the first slide, please. All right, so what is lobbying? Lobbying in the simplest terms is the act of attempting to influence government decisions. Lobbying itself is a component of advocacy. While advocacy can refer to the broad stroke of showing support or educating around a certain issue or cause, for example, by attending a protest or building a coalition of like-minded organizations, lobbying gets more specific and refers to the action of taking a stance on legislation and engaging with public officials. Why is it important? Well, when you lobby, you communicate directly with decision makers that have the power to create, execute, and interpret the law. Therefore, lobbying is an integral tool utilized by advocates within our democracy to realize tangible change. When you participate in lobbying, you're showing up for your community and its values. For example, if you're a humanist, lobbying raises the profile of the humanist community and agenda because not only are you simply identifying yourself as a community, but as a community having agency, unique perspective, and most importantly, concern. Meeting or connecting with your elected officials can be one of the most effective means of securing their commitment to protect the issues that are important to you. As humanists, we are so far past well aware that civil liberties and human rights are not given, they're fought for. So whether it be issues under the separation of religion and government umbrella, immigrants' rights, labor laws, sustainable environmental policy, voting rights, you can lobby on all of these with ease. A lot of the times when folks hear the words lobbying or lobbyists, there's sort of an affiliated negative connotation that comes to people's minds. Sometimes this is because of an association with instances of corruption, which is certainly legitimate. Lobbying is also associated with laws and regulations that must be abided by. But for the purposes of this webinar at the 101 level, generally speaking, as a private citizen, you do not have to worry about any of that. If the word lobbying bothers you, you can just think advocacy instead. But for others, the act of lobbying is contextualized within the picture of someone speaking with authority and expertise on a subject to an elected official. You may ask yourself, what gives me the authority? Or what if I don't know this issue in and out? Let me tell you, as a person subject to the laws we make for ourselves, you have the authority to make your voice heard on the things that you care about. And you don't have to be an expert when you speak to elected officials. Lobbying is actually right there in the First Amendment to the Constitution, which says Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. But more on addressing your representatives later. Finally, just don't let a fear of public speaking or a fear of making your opinions public stop you from standing up from what you believe in. Um, we know that those who wish to desecrate civil liberties and human rights, the environment, ethics, are not going to be shy to lobby, and you shouldn't be either. So with practice and equipped with the tips we'll go over today, I assure you, you will find your confidence. Next slide, please. So first things first, we should make something absolutely clear. As a constituent, you are an elected official's boss. You elect them, and they both need and want to listen to you. Because public officials need votes to remain in office, it's in their interest to meet you and to try and accommodate your political needs whenever possible. Elected officials need to hear your perspective on how a bill or a problem affects you because it fosters an understanding of viewpoint through a personal note. So use your power and use it well, you know. Your persistence as a concerned, credible, and well-organized constituent is your most powerful tool and an asset to your interests. Next slide, please. All right, so transitioning into the federal lobbying process. We're going to be making some suggestions and recommendations that will help you have a successful meeting with your elected officials. For the purposes of this conversation, we'll focus on lobbying members of Congress of whom you are a constituent. So background research. The first step that you need to do is identify what your issue is and what your ask is. For example, is there a bill you like that you want your elected officials to support? Second, while this may be self-explanatory, you want to find out who your representative is / who your senators actually are. Each person in every state has 2 senators and 1 representative. I'll tell you that the easiest way to find out who your House member is to type "find your representative" into Google, click on the official House link, and input your address. And I think Lily might drop that in the chat in a second, so you can go check that link out. And then for senators, you really can just Google who the senators of your state are. But do some research into your members. Are they not yet co-sponsoring the bill you like? Do you know how they feel about the issues related to the topic of your bill of interest? Find out and see if they've done any work on or adjacent to your issue. In your research, you will perhaps even find things you have in common with a member that you can use to then relate with and make a connection with them. So requesting the meeting, members' official Congress websites have tabs where you can request a meeting as a constituent. Submit the information that's requested and expect to hear back from the office. And if you don't, you can always just call the office and make the request for a meeting as well. And don't be dismayed if, when they get back to you, you're told that you'll be meeting with a staffer. Members rely on staffers' diligence and judgment, which makes staff very powerful. What you bring to the table in a staff meeting ultimately helps the staffer formulate their conversation with their boss, i.e. the member of Congress. But also don't be surprised if a representative or senator ends up popping into your meeting because they generally really enjoy meeting with their constituents. So meeting preparation. If you're lobbying on a piece of legislation, it's going to be helpful to know where the bill is at in the legislative process. But don't fret if you're not familiar with the legislative process. I'm going to tell you a secret. A lot of people, including sometimes even the staffers themselves, don't know the ins and outs of the legislative process, which, to be honest, was both a surprising and comforting fact to me. You do not need to be an expert on the legislative process. That's your member's office's job. They only need to hear you out, and they'll take care of the rest. And really, like, the truth is, you can lobby at all points of the process. Next, decide who's going to accompany you, if anybody, and decide what you're going to bring. I would say like capping the total number at maybe 6 would generally be best. You don't want too many people with you. Think of inviting people who show broad support on that particular issue that you'll be discussing, or who have personal stories to tell that are related to the issue. You know, maybe you want to also prepare a little one-pager to bring along with you as a leave behind that could, you know, summarize your issues or the piece of legislation you support or oppose. Otherwise, just follow any firm appointment with confirmation, briefly restating the issues you'll be covering, naming the attendees and their affiliations, mentioning the date and time of the meeting, and of course, including your contact information, is all going to be very helpful for the office. So when you're structuring your remarks, meetings are typically going to last 15 to 30 minutes. So you need to ensure that you plan and structure your remarks efficiently and persuasively. You and your group will need to definitively decide what your ask is. For example, Rep. Balorian, we want you to co-sponsor this bill. Then constructing or agreeing on an agenda that logically flows would also be a helpful tool. Deciding who will speak and when will ensure your comments are well paced. And then also, if not everyone is a constituent of the representative you are meeting with, this constituents could go first. Just a note on that, I would say like making your constituent status clear kind of gives you a certain authority, if you will, and relaying the fact that you represent others, if you indeed do, can only help get the attention of your representatives, as there's power in numbers, and mentioning a local angle to your issue is always a great thing to point out too. If you can tell a personal story about how an issue or a bill would affect you, that makes a big difference. Also, specifics about how something affects the district or state is helpful if possible as well. Finally, you really just need to do the research to the best of your ability. You want to be as well informed as you can. Some things that perhaps you should know includes, is there any important background on this bill the office should know? What does the bill require? How is it changing the law? Who are the sponsors of the bill? What organizations have come out in support or against the bill? Why is this bill important to you? All of this should be dictated in your meeting. So now to the fun part, the day of. On the day of your meeting, it goes without saying that you're going to want to make sure you're on time. Just inform the office who you are there to meet with once you arrive. Now, I understand that a lot of people are going to find the prospect of doing this pretty daunting, but please do not be scared to meet with your elected officials and their staff, or their staff. Like, don't be intimidated by like the ornate buildings, people in suits, the reputation of your elected official. They're really just people like you and I, like the members and the staff. They're here to meet with you and answer your questions. If you start to have butterflies, just tell yourself that you've absolutely got this. Of course, you're always going to want to make sure that your comportment is polite and respectful, but be yourself and try to represent your cause to the best of your ability. Once you're sitting down for the meeting, simply go as you've planned. Run through your agenda, make your remarks, stick to the topic you said you were coming in to discuss. Like, don't go off on a tangent with an issue that no one was expecting. Now, the person that you're meeting with is most likely going to have questions for you. Just answer to the best of your ability, but never lie or guess at an answer. The best answer you can ever give is, I don't know, but I'd be happy to get back to you. This supports your reliability as a resource. And then the last thing I'll comment about the day of is just because life is life, just be aware that things may not go exactly as planned. After all, this is a conversation and the Hill is a crazy place. For example, a staffer could inform you that they only have 15 minutes instead of 30. Don't be dismayed or take this personally. Staff on the Hill literally are doing the impossible every day. They cover a ton of issues for their members and are doing their best to work hard for constituents while juggling literally a million things. So in an instance like this, I just encourage you to be prepared to give the top lines of your remarks and express what's important. So after any meeting with an elected official's office, send a follow-up note thanking the office and briefly reiterating your ask. If you told them you'd get back to them about a question they had, include the answer you've researched and confirmed. If they said that they would do something specific, you can remind them in the note. If you ask them to support a bill, check back in a month later to see if they've co-sponsored it or taken any related actions. And then just some final notes on this section is, as a side note, if getting to Washington is not an option, try to see if you can meet with a staff member in the nearest district office. District office meetings can be easier since there's no significant travel involved. And since staffers are locally based, this can actually provide a better opportunity to build ongoing relationships with them. Otherwise, you can also raise an issue at any town hall meetings your elected officials hold at home. And we also haven't gone into we haven't gone into depth on this in this webinar, but virtual meetings are also 100% an option these days that you can absolutely take advantage of. And as mentioned before, you are allowed to lobby. It is legal. You only become an official lobbyist if someone is paying you, if you spend a significant portion of your time doing it, along with some like other legal stipulations. But letting your representatives know what you think about something is just being an involved citizen. Next slide, please. All right, so lobbying is not just something that can be done in Congress at the federal level. Far from it. Not to get too much into a little government lesson here, but a difference between state and local versus federal government is that the federal government will have authority or jurisdiction over certain laws and regulations that supersedes those that are made at the state and local level. But nevertheless, it is so, so important to know what is going on in your state and local levels of government. So much of the law that affects your daily life is directly debated and voted on by state legislatures. For example, what has the power to curtail sexual and reproductive health and rights? The states. What has the power to ensure that the elections that you're voting in are free and fair? The states. And so on and so on. State and local level governments are very powerful, and many issues are decided by them. And the unfortunate thing is, many aren't even aware of their existence, in particular state level legislatures. That's right, you have state level senators and representatives that are separate from your congressional representatives and senators. To be totally honest with you, I didn't even know about them until I applied to work at one as a newly graduated poli-science major. I remember having to like look up who my rep was just to have that answer for the interview. So the piece that came from innocent ignorance. But anyway, lobbying your state representatives follows much of the same tips and steps that we talked about as they pertain to federal lobbying. But it's possible that you may find that your state reps are easier to reach and the issue is far more localized. While all 50 state legislatures operate much the same as the federal legislature does, each state will have its own unique quirks. So you need to familiarize yourself with your state's governing bodies, find out when state legislative sessions are, and be aware of the bills that are being introduced into the process. Finally, state legislatures are not the only form of governing bodies at the local level. There's county level boards and positions like county treasurer, county attorney. There are mayors and city councils. I literally just learned that Chicago has alderpersons for each neighborhood. There are school boards that govern public education matters, and so on and so on. Certainly not trying to overwhelm you, but it's just important to be aware of these elected officials because they're really out here making decisions on your behalf. Next slide, please. Maybe you're shy and not ready to try lobbying elected officials in person. Maybe your schedule just doesn't permit the time to do so as much as you'd like. I'm pleased to tell you that there are solutions. We're lastly going to talk about lobbying from the comfort of your own home, which can really be the easiest way to advocate for pieces of legislation or policies that matter to you. So there are multiple ways that this can be done. First, I'll point out the Humanist Action Headquarters, or HAHQ. If you're an AHA member or on our email list, you should be familiar with these. So many advocacy organizations have a software that allows them to send what are called action alerts out to supporters. Action alerts are calls to action. They're pre-written messages to elected officials that make it easy for you to really just put your name on and send to them. In our action alert system at the AHA, we make sure that the links to our alerts include all the information that you would need to know about the bill that you're going to be sending a message to your reps about, including the background information, the content of the bill, and why it's important to humanists. The Humanist Action Headquarters is AHA's website for all of the humanist legislation that we've identified as needing your support. So you can visit that at americanhumanist.org/actionhq. And I think Lily just put it, thank you so much, Lily. She's put it in the chat for us. So you can check that link if you would like to check it out right now. Another way to advocate for a piece of legislation is to just pick up the phone and call a member's office. So for members of Congress, just type in your member's name online and go to their official congressional website. If you scroll to the bottom, there's going to be a list of offices along with the corresponding phone numbers that you can call. When you call an office to express support or opposition to a piece of legislation or policy initiative, you might be asked your name and zip code by the staffer, whoever answers the phone. Really, this staffer is simply establishing your residency to see if you're a constituent. This process is much the same for more local levels of government, except, maybe an assistant will answer, like record your comments, relay them to the member or other official. So emailing elected officials is also a legitimate way to contact them. Often for state level legislative members, emails will be listed online on the legislature's website. However, for Congress at the federal level, this is not the case. If you're contacting a member of whom you are a constituent, you can use these preset email forms located on that member's website that they have. But if you wish to email a member of whom you are not a constituent, you can simply just call the office and request the appropriate email address. Finally, if you want to just go the old school route, find a pen and a piece of paper, write out your grievances, and drop it in the mail. Just make sure you write the address correctly on the envelope. Letters go through a security process that delays them up to 2 weeks, but getting a letter about an issue is unusual enough these days that they tend to stand out. So think about it, everybody. If it's this easy to lobby your elected officials, what is your excuse not to? Next slide, please. All right, so before I turn it over to Scott, who is going to tell us a little bit about an opportunity that you can sign up for, I wanted to touch base on an important part of all of this. We need to remember to always be respectful in your correspondences with elected officials, no matter the medium and no matter the level of agreement. Representing yourself, your community, and your ideas with decorum benefits not only your own personal relationship with the member's office, but also of your cause and those who follow in your footsteps. Just like anybody else, an office is not going to be very receptive to undue hostility. Now, this is not to say that elected officials do not rightfully deserve the ire of the masses sometimes. They so often, honestly, too often do. But just use your best judgment and know that there's a time and a place and other forms of activism that you can use at your disposal. Next slide, please. So, are we energized? Are we itching to make some changes? Whatever the issue you want to make a difference in or want to have your voice heard on, I seriously implore you to apply what you've learned here today. Thank you so much for listening. I now want to turn it over to Scott McConomy from the Secular Coalition for America, who's going to talk about a lobbying opportunity that you can take advantage of.
Thank you, Isabella. Evening, everybody. It's great to be here. Let me just tell you real quick about the Secular Coalition. We are a group of 20 large and small organizations that all believe in separation of church and state, and we lobby for the equal rights of non-religious Americans. And AHA is one of our members of the coalition, one of our favorite members, I'll say that. So it's good to be here tonight. That was a really good overview of lobbying basics, really. Sorry about that. That was a great introduction. The key points again are, I worked on Capitol Hill for a long time. I've done probably hundreds of constituent meetings, and the people you meet with don't expect you to be an expert on the policy, although the more you learn about what you're coming in to talk about, the better. And they don't expect you to be experts on how a bill becomes law or where the bill is in the process. They just want to get the opinion of people that they represent. And when you go to the time and effort to talk to them, come to DC, even just doing a Zoom, they really appreciate it, I find. And I'm right here in DC, and I'll say probably half the meetings I do are on Zoom. So that would be maybe the best way for everybody who's not here to have a successful meeting with somebody on the Hill right now. So the event that we're coming up with, Lobby Day 2024, is on March 5th, and registration is still open. And we would love to have anybody who's interested in doing it come to DC. It's a reception on the night of the 4th with a few members of Congress, and then actual lobbying on the 5th. We're going to talk about a bill that Congressman Raskin just introduced and Senator Markey. This is the one we're looking at. It would address the problem of militias in this country. One of our biggest concerns at the Secular Coalition is the rise of Christian nationalism. People that think we need to be a more Christian nation and that we need to have a more Christian government. And there are a lot of people like that in militias around the country. And these are the people that are willing to do more about it. We find they're saying, I mean, it used to be, what's the point in voting? It doesn't matter. Now it's, what's the point in voting? It's all rigged anyway. So these are people that are sort of taking their beliefs and using them to give themselves permission to go do something about it when they think we need a more Christian government. So Congressman Raskin has introduced a bill that would put some restrictions on what militias can do, private unauthorized militias. There are legal state militias in a lot of states. But anyway, we're going to go talk about militias and ask members of Congress to support Congressman Raskin and Senator Markey's bill. And we would love to have anybody listening tonight sign up. And you can find out more about this at lobbyday.us. That's our website. And with that, I guess we're going to throw it open to questions.
Yep, I'm just going to close this out real quick, but thank you so much, Scott. Definitely very much looking forward to the progress that's made on Capitol Hill, especially since our friends will be guided by seasoned and knowledgeable advocates like yourself. I have learned a lot from Scott, everybody. Just wanted to say, he's awesome. So for Lobby Day on March 5th, there will be so much support for you. You're going to have someone with you to ask questions. You'll be able to meet directly with your representatives and senators, which is honestly is super cool. I mean, like we said, they're people just like you and I. And you won't have to worry about being nervous because you're going to have an experienced lobbyer with you at all times to hold your hand through the process. So folks, that's going to be the end of our conversation today. We hope that lobbying seems like much less of a scary ordeal than perhaps you originally thought before joining us this evening. I personally feel like it's patriotic to lobby as a civic duty, and really just also it's an important skill to have and a good life experience. Finally, if you like this presentation or really just generally appreciate our work here at the American Humanist Association and the Secular Coalition for America, consider making a donation, or even better, becoming a member. Our ability to advocate for humanist issues in Congress and beyond is only thanks to support of people like you, thanks to the support of people like you. So, and we do it with everything we've got. So anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. On the slide, you can find our contact information. Please feel empowered to reach out to us in the AHA Policy Department or Scott at the Secular Coalition for America for any lobbying or just general policy questions you might have. So let's open it up to questions now. Thank you, by the way, thank you to those who sent us questions ahead of time. We tried to incorporate them into the presentation. So if we didn't touch on a question you have, or you would like more details, please feel free to email us at the email on the screen. Please feel free to type into the Q&A tab your questions. We'll try to get to as many as we can. So let's see what we got. Okay, so the first question that we have is, do you believe that email is as effective at influencing a lawmaker as writing a letter? I would say that both are effective. Email is probably quicker because, as we mentioned before, letters go through a little bit of a security process. However, I would say it's about the same. I remember when I was interning in Congress, like 2 years back now. Wow. You know, we would scan the letter into a system anyway. So it's kind of the same thing, but you know, as mentioned before as well, it's kind of like interesting when they get a letter. It's kind of like, oh, like, you know, dinosaur kind of thing. Just kidding. But yeah. Did you have anything to add on that, Scott?
I think when somebody gets a letter on their desk and it is kind of novel these days, and they think to themselves, "Wow, somebody actually went to the trouble of writing this up and getting a stamp." So it stands out a little bit. The emails do sort of get quantified, and there'll be a report to people in the office. We got 500 emails on abortion or whatever. Every issue there's definite quantification of how many come in. So if you've got the time and you've got the address, I would say feel free to send a letter. And like Isabel said, unless it's urgent, because if it's a vote coming up tomorrow, you want to email. But if it's something that can take a little time, they still have to check everything that comes in for anthrax and every other threat. So they do go to a secure facility, and that slows them down a little.
Awesome. Um, our next question is how often are meetings canceled the day of? It might be a little different for people who represent groups. You know, I don't know if I could give like a percentage, but you know, things happen. Sometimes meetings do get canceled. However, I would imagine that for if it was a constituent meeting, they would be more inclined to try to make that meeting. So I don't know if I can give a, you know, a certain percentage. However, that's how I think.
If I could just throw something in there, I've had meetings where it was in the elevator because somebody had to suddenly go over to the Capitol from the Senate office building and talk to their boss. So sometimes it's walking down the hall. Sometimes it's in the back room of a committee hearing. So I would say it's pretty rare for them to just flat out cancel a meeting with a constituent. They usually try and find a way to work it in somehow, or you might have to talk to somebody else in the office, but they can still pass along uh, what you came to talk about if that's the best they can do.
Great. Sandra is asking what we can do to support this lobby from our homes. I'm assuming that she is asking about the lobby day. So Scott, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Well, yeah, we are going to do, Isabel mentioned action alerts. We're going to have an action alert on this bill, which is just you going to our website, filling in some basic information. Somebody just recently said, I'd like to do it, but I don't want to give out my phone number. Well, that's there because some congressional offices require a phone number basically to get an email. This is making it easy for you to send them an email. So we will have an email on our secular.org website that you can just easily send to your representatives about the militia bill. And AHA has their own similar page with all the important issues AHA is advocating for. So yeah, we both do the action alert process to make it easy for people. If sending an email is the best you can do at this point, then that's great. We really appreciate it. Not everybody can come to Washington. We certainly realize that.
Absolutely. I think one question that ties in here that I see is, are voicemails better than emails? Um, Based on, you know, what we've said in the answers to the previous questions, voicemails go into the same, like the same staffer who's answering the phone is going to be listening to the voicemails and recording your comments. So voicemails are also, if you'd rather leave a voicemail, you know, like calling after hours and just leave a voicemail, that's also a very legitimate way to get your comments in. Um, let's see what else we have here. Are you allowed to record your meeting with your elected official or their staff? Um, I don't, I personally don't know if there's a law against that. Scott, do you know?
I'm guessing there's a different policy on that in very different offices. Probably they wouldn't mind, but I can't give you a blank answer. It's just going to be up to the staffers. I don't usually need to do that or want to try to do that. So I can't really give you a personal experience answer on that one.
Thanks. And same here. We don't really do that as either. So, um, should we dress up for meetings? Yeah, I mean, you can dress as comfortable as you feel and as best that you feel that you are representing um, your community or yourself or however you want to present yourself. Usually, typically people do dress up when they go to the Hill or when they have a Zoom meeting with a staff member or the Congress person. But I would say that you can use your best judgment. Um, let's see. Scott, do you see any in the chat that you would also like to, like, feel free to just go after it.
I saw one pop up a little while ago that asked about a specific issue, which was the bill, and it's a bill in Indiana that would allow chaplains to be school counselors. That's a great example of a state level issue that is gaining more and more traction around the country. It started last year in Texas, and now there's at least 6 other states where somebody's introduced a bill to let chaplains essentially function as school counselors. And one other place I have been a lobbyist was at the American Counseling Association, where we represented school counselors. So I'm particularly aghast at this idea. So what can you do about that? Well, the same general principles apply at the state level as they do at the federal level. I would suggest there's an association for everything. I'm sure there's a national association for school chaplain or for chaplains, and there may just be state by state associations as well. Because I know in Texas, a lot of the chaplains are saying this is a terrible idea. So I would find out if there's a Indiana Chaplain Association and see if they're officially opposed to this or in favor of this. Some may be in favor, I don't know. Or they might say, I don't know, we don't have a position on this. But anyway, see what they're saying about it, see what their talking points are about it if they're opposed to it, and get in touch with your state representatives and say, what's wrong with school counselors? Why can't we just have school counselors? The arguments are pretty self-explanatory why this is a bad idea.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Scott, for answering that one. Barbara's asking, I wanted to contact one of my congresspersons about an issue, but on their website, they had specific issues listed that they focused on, and my issue wasn't one of them. Is it still worth my time to contact them? How do I choose which one to contact? So it is absolutely worth your time to contact them about an issue that is not stated on their website or in their issue description. Just because they've picked out some mainline issues that, they want to present as, championing, or this is what they're most passionate about. They work on a ton of other issues too, and they show support by co-sponsoring legislation. For example, they might be a part of a caucus that deals with that issue, and the more they hear about issues from their constituents, and they learn about things, and they also learn about how things are affecting people locally. So it is absolutely whatever you feel is important or concern to you, or you have an issue that you're passionate about that you feel needs to be changed that needs to be progressed or needs to see some reform, you should absolutely bring it to your legislator. In terms of how do you choose which one to contact, I'm not exactly sure how to specifically answer this one, just because, connecting with as many elected officials, I would say connecting with as many of them as you can or as you wish would be a good way to go about it. But, maybe one legislator has an interest in this issue. So maybe you want to go, maybe they have more connections that they can, they're more knowledgeable about this issue. So that would be like one example of, how you could pick who you're going to go to first or only. Yeah. Scott, did you want to comment on that one?
Well, without getting too technical into what to do about this, if you look at their bio on their website, it'll usually tell you what committees they're on. And sometimes it's fairly obvious that, if I have a issue involving agriculture and it says they're on the agriculture committee, then you should definitely talk to them. But that's an imperfect, really, way to do this because you can't possibly know what committee would cover every more obscure issue. But it's worth a try. And I mean, it's just good to know my senators on the following three committees and my other senators on the other. Usually they're different. They try not to sort of all be on the same committees for the same state. So see if the committee assignments help match up with whatever your issue is.
Absolutely. Thank you, Scott. Thomas is asking, can the same methods for lobbying be used for thanking your representative if they have fought for the issue that you feel is important? Did you want to take that one first?
Absolutely. People are very happy to find out that they did something that people in their district or their state are pleased with. So any and all of the above ways to let them know that they did something right is always appreciated. And um, start with the email, make a phone call. I'm guessing if you say, I just wanted to call and thank you for something, you'll get through to somebody a lot faster than if it's, I want to complain about something.
Definitely. And just, yeah, and to reiterate, like they're always being asked, like, please do this, please do that, support this, support that. And then I don't think that they so often get like a thank you. So I think they really do appreciate, that sort of thing, that positivity and recognition. Because you're also affirming, like, thank you, you made took a good step or something. So definitely.
And
Great.
sort of
Yeah.
along the same lines, last year for Lobby Day, we lobbied for the bill that would ask for more transparency at the Supreme Court because it wasn't even that big an issue then. This was before even the first embarrassing story about Clarence Thomas came out. But anyway, we were in there saying we'd like you to support this bill that would require more transparency and ethics at the Supreme Court. And one person said, you're the first meeting I've had today where they weren't actually asking for something for themselves, money for a defense contractor or something like that. So that's kind of like thanking somebody for something they've done. If you're asking for something sort of big picture, not I need this or my town needs this, they can appreciate that.
Some Another one of the questions is it appropriate for me as a constituent to ask my legislator how they plan to vote on a specified bill? The answer to that is absolutely. It is absolutely appropriate for you to ask that. Please do. They might not give you a straight answer, but but you can absolutely ask. And they might have an answer for you too. So another question is, let's see. What examples can you share of how to best lobby members of Congress who do not share your values? Um, I can try to answer this one first. Does that sound good?
Sure, go ahead. You take the hard one.
Okay. So honestly, yes, it is difficult, but it is absolutely well worth your time. Again, as we stated in the presentation, you are the constituent and you have the power. They need and want to listen to you because they want to get reelected, right? In terms of how to best lobby members of Congress who don't share your values, really the best thing that you can do is try to find common ground. That's really the best that you can do. Try to see if there's an angle to your issue that, you can say like, okay, like this is happening and this is how it's affecting your constituents locally. That's definitely going to interest them. I think as an example, I think it's okay. Like, so basically there's Representative Huffman of California has introduced a bill called the Health Share Transparency Act, and it is trying to ensure that healthcare sharing ministries are being transparent about their funds and how they are basically their operations. Um, and one, a lot of secular groups support the bill because again, we're trying to come like one of our charges is to combat privilege, like religious privileges. Healthcare sharing ministries are basically kind of like a carve out. We don't need to go into super detail here, but basically, the secular groups are in support of this bill because it is a religious carve out, or a religious, yes. However, someone made the comment that I was just amazed at, that the people who are in these healthcare sharing ministries are religious people themselves. So the people that are getting hurt by the conduct of these healthcare sharing ministries are actually mostly Christians. So to bring that up to a lawmaker who may not see the benefit in coming after these healthcare sharing ministries, showing that the people in, maybe perhaps people in their community are being affected in a negative way as well, is probably, a good way to make a connection and make it click. So I would say that that's probably one of the better examples that I have off the top of my head. Yes. Did you want to add to that, Scott, or we can go to the next one?
I'll just point out that if you're lobbying about something, it may be more specific than a values discussion. I mean, it'll be, I'd like you to vote this way on this bill, but your opinion is largely based on your values. And yes, those values can be very different, but you should just respectfully explain, here's how I feel about this. Here's why uh, this is my position on it. And there are many other people that feel the same way, many more people in your district or in your state or in the country. So it's good to just let whoever you're talking to know this is not an unusual way people feel about this, and maybe that will make a difference.
Great. Bill is asking, I may be able to do lobby day in DC in person, but may not be able to attend the meeting the previous evening. Does that present a problem?
No, that's not a problem at all. That's just something sort of extra we try to do. But if all you can do is show up on the 5th, that would be great. And sign up as soon as you can, and we'll start scheduling the meetings. We've already begun that process, but it's definitely not too late. I would say maybe a week out is about the latest you can call up an office and say you'd like to get a meeting on somebody's schedule.
Great. Do you have lobbyists in different states to address state issues, or anyone who tracks proposed state legislation? So there are, of course, a lot of advocacy groups that focus on at the state level on different state issues that are, completely. They have lobbyists specifically for state legislatures, things like that. In terms of us as, uh, our organizations, AHA specifically, we do a little bit of state work. However, we've focused mostly on federal issues. However, I will say that Secular Coalition for America member American Atheists actually does a lot of work on this at the state level. They have an amazing state legislation level tracker that actually is a really good resource for any of the bills that would relate to the separation of church and state. So we can put that in the chat for people to check out. But that is a really good resource on that. All right. How can you detect that your lobbying had any influence or impact? Scott, do you want to take that one?
Well, when we're going into meetings on a bill that has recently been introduced, we're usually asking people to become co-sponsors of that bill. It just is the way everyone in Congress who supports a bill kind of formally attach their name to it. So that's usually our ask. Could you please co-sponsor S2519 or whatever the bill is? So keeping track of that is really the simplest, most straightforward way of finding out if your meeting had an effect and they have uh, decided to officially add their name to a bill. If it's not quite that simple, then you just sort of see, well, did they vote for this bill when it eventually comes up for a vote? Or sometimes it only comes up for a vote in a committee that they're on, but you can still monitor that and see if they were paying attention.
Awesome. Great. And then it looks like just a reminder that if you have a question, to put it into the questions and answer tab, and not just in the general chat box. And also, I don't think I mentioned this in the beginning, and I do apologize, but this meeting is being recorded. It's going to be out hopefully later on this week so that you can actually review and use this webinar as a resource for whenever you need it, whenever you decide to start lobbying, which is hopefully soon. So it looks like we just have 2 more questions left in the question and answer, at least at this moment. Do you have any tips on a lobby day that would involve more than 6 people? We are planning one for late April, early May. Well, I personally have never been involved in with a lobbying group that was that large. Um, but I would imagine that you would definitely want to communicate to the staffer or the member, whoever you're meeting with, that you will be bringing a large group of people. I've definitely seen it before, so it's not a novel thing. Sometimes you'll see big groups of people like all wearing like the same shirt or something. Um, but the way that I would imagine planning something like that is having, again, planning an agenda like we mentioned before, and then having like keeping the speakers to a minimal, basically having like a leader who kind of like guides the conversation, and then like having someone, provide a story or tell us how something personally affects them, or to basically give it more of like a personal spin in such a big group. But I mean, having a big group is definitely not an issue, I would say, because it shows you're really coming into the office showing like, look how much support this issue has, and look how many people are passionate about and want to see you take action on this. So that's how I would plan it. Unless you have anything to add to that, Scott, I'll ask the last question.
Nope, that was a good answer. Go ahead.
Alrighty, so you mentioned that we would need to be paid to be considered a lobbyist. Does that apply to every state? There are a lot of stipulations as to what would make you an official lobbyist outside of just like a citizen kind of lobbying on your own accord. Every state has its unique laws based on when you would need to register as a lobbyist. So I feel that the answer to that question is it depends, and it's unique wherever you are. So if you are interested in learning about that, I would just do some research into the laws of your state. However, again, for the purposes of this kind of lobbying, where it's just a constituent speaking to the member, you don't have anything to worry about because that doesn't apply to you. Did you want to add to that, Scott? Or
Yeah, what we're talking about here tonight is just being a good citizen. So we don't even really need to be calling this lobbying. We could just be calling it advocacy. I think at the federal level, you have to get paid $13,000 a year or more to be considered an official lobbyist on an official issue. And so therefore nobody here's got to worry about that, because who's paying you anyway?
Great. Alrighty. So it looks like there is one last question, and then we'll kind of close. We'll close down. But how effective is citizen lobbying as compared with the millions of dollars organizations like the NRA can spend? I would say that citizen lobbying is absolutely effective. Again, members of Congress, state level, local level representatives, you are their boss. Like, you have the power, basically. They need to and want to listen to you. And again, like, lobbying is not the only form of advocacy that you can use, So I would say that it's effective, but absolutely, like some organizations spending exuberant amounts of money is absolutely something that is going to be, combative to some, either for or against some of the issues that you care about. But the voice of the people at the citizen level is absolutely important. It should always be uplifted and respected. All right.
I'll tell a quick story to kind of build on that. We can end with a story. When I was at the American Counseling Association, we were lobbying for a Medicare provision. Basically, mental health counselors don't get paid, can't get reimbursed through Medicare. So everybody who's over 65 and they want to go see a mental health counselor, it's not covered by Medicare. So we were talking to a senior senator from a medium-sized Western state on a lobby day. And it was me and somebody from that state who happily knew the issue and knew what to say, because we came in and she introduced herself and I introduced myself as, hi, I'm Scott McConomy. I'm from here in DC with the American Counseling Association. And he didn't look at me. He said, hi, nice to meet you. And he didn't look at me again for 10 minutes. He just talked to his constituent and he knew what she was supposed to say. And that was fine. I didn't need to be in the conversation. And if he wanted to just talk to her, great. So not that I was like somebody from pharma or Boeing, but I was like the DC guy and he just wasn't interested. So that shows you how just being the constituent with something to say is all you really need to be.
That's an awesome story. And I think that's a great way to close our conversation tonight. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you feel empowered. Looks like we're ending right at 8 p.m. on the dot. And thank you again so much for joining us on a Monday night. We really appreciate your time and your interest. And thank you for doing all that you do. And we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Hi, everybody.